Let's go. I'm ready. Sorry.
I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
This week got so freaking real. Like, literally, stop while I'm listening to text you how real it got.
Yeah.
So real.
Dude, yeah, it was super duper wild. It was, pretty much this whole book has been more or less nonstop action.
Yeah,
and
dude.
just like something is happening, something was changing. You know, every section of reading that we were doing, which, obviously we broke it up in the same way that the book is broken up in acts, more or less.
Yeah.
So it was, designed that way to a degree.
But it just kept
fuck, it
getting
never
better
stopped.
and better and better.
Yeah.
It was getting more action packed and more like, oh, you liked this heist? Well, here, boom, like here's another.
Right, here's how it got crazier, and here's how it got fucked up, and now we're recovering.
Oh, did you even know we were doing a heist right here? Because here's the effect of it. It's like, dude, dang, that's good.
It was, a consistently improving book.
Yeah, I'm reading the
with
next one for sure.
Increasingly, like, the high octane story that was going.
High octane, fast and furious.
It was really good. I was really excited to be reading it constantly.
Me too. I was never sad like when I had to turn on the book. Like, I hate to say Beacon 23 kind of bummed me out sometimes, but Beacon
23 did a weird thing for me where I would get angry at it.
I'd get kind of
and then I was like, okay, well, what's the next thing? Like, it would somehow, and I don't know if it was just because I wasn't paying attention or what it was, but it would like almost mockingly subvert my expectation for it right at the end of what we were reading. And I'd be like, all right, well, I'm ready for the next section. Let's see what happens. And then it would just immediately then be like, nah, we're not that smart.
And we gave it so much credit. We were trying so hard to like give that book so much faith, and it just like the next week is just like, no.
Just the next thing ended up being like, what is happening?
Man. I always got like kind of depressed with that guy too, because like all his shit was kind of hitting the fan all the time.
There were times that I really related with him.
And then he had that cool
and maybe that was part of where like it, sucked me back in at a certain point was like, I really relate to this guy. But then something that was just like, I couldn't reconcile with happened. I'd be like,
dude, that's what's crazy about this book though, is that like, I mean, somehow they kind of do make them relatable, even though like I've never pulled off a heist, like I'm not like a fucking gentleman bastard, but like somehow they make me relate to Jean, like I want to think that like I would be the Jean of the group, not that like I'm the best fighter or whatever, but I feel like, we all have our roles, and he became my favorite after we progressed it through the story, and I just kind of feel like even though like I'm not what they would call the gentleman bastard, like I don't know, I wouldn't do these heists or anything, I feel like they're still relatable, and it's always weird when you make like an anti-hero that relatable, like when they made Dexter so like, oh, that's nice, go Dexter, dude, that's the right move, man,
right.
You're gonna get away with this murder.
Right.
Like
there's definitely like a for the same reason that there's always a million sides to every person.
Yeah, dude.
And conceivably, this is totally unrelated, but I was just thinking about this on the way home. But like, in the way that I was thinking about it was completely unrelated to what we're talking about. It is very related. But any one individual could conceivably do heinous things, and also very great things. So there's, people are so humans are so capable of whatever that even in the back of your mind, or even not even in the back of your mind, or subconsciously, or whatever it is, like any one individual might think like, I could rob this person right now, or how would I do a robbery, or what would I do with all the money of a bank robbery that I had successfully done, and things like that. People think about that sort of stuff because to some degree we're all capable of at least thinking about having done those things. Yeah,
and there is something appealing to it. There is something appealing to like kind of getting away with like something like
you want to break the rules now and then.
And as long and it doesn't feel like it's really hurting anybody.
So whenever you're just thinking about it, there's no consequences. So it's all free. It's fair play and free game. Like you don't have to. There's nothing to worry about. You're not actually doing it.
I'm just taking a little chapstick from Walmart.
Right, which is part of what makes the idea of something like Minority Report horrifying, because then you're getting arrested for thought crime. Yeah, which is what that movie's about if you haven't seen it.
Dude, that sounds stressful.
Yeah.
You got to keep all your thoughts in line all the time. Talk about jail
and to a lesser realized degree. That's what 1984 is sort of about.
Yeah, dude, I would go.
But they have to fish the thoughts out of you rather than in Minority Report. They literally know what you're thinking,
man,
and can arrest you for it. But in any case, I guess while we're talking about the characters in this book, I think on all sides are really good, and that's part of what made it so good. With the Gentlemen Bastards being likable to their appropriate degrees, now that we know their full arc as far as this book is concerned.
Yeah.
The Sansa twins were engaging and enjoyable.
Right.
But we didn't know enough about them to super duper care, and we didn't need to because we don't have to. They're dead.
Yeah.
Bug is the endearing apprentice who is dead.
Yeah.
Jean is, we end up knowing a little bit more about him, and at the very least, even then, his relationship with Locke, the main character. So then,
totally besties.
Yeah, so we can appreciate him and be happy that he continues to be alive.
Yeah,
and then Locke being, obviously the main anti-hero.
Interesting, in this book, there was no female, no real strong female leads. Like maybe the sisters were at the evil end, sisters, but even then there wasn't really much of a.
Because it's and I think like we've talked about to varying degrees in past episodes, because we're going to meet Sabbatha at one point in this series.
Fuck Sabbatha, dude.
Sabbatha's going to come out, and she's going to be the best character.
Dude, I bet he didn't know how to write a girl character, so that's why we didn't get one. He's just like, I don't know very many women. I'm just going to do a bunch of homies.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll certainly find out how well Sabbatha actually ends up being. But I have a feeling that Sabbatha comes out and ends up being like the best character. And they even, at the last second, drop one last name drop on her. Mm-hmm. Whenever, we get the fake out death of Locke at the end there.
Wait, that was fake?
You read the afterword, or you listened to the afterword, right?
I just once I heard Locked Out, I was like, well,
I'm done.
Fuck it.
Not reading any of these books again.
It was good until that part.
Yeah, but right there at the last second, Locke is telling Jean to take off or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you find Sabbatha, tell her this. And Jean's you fucking tell Sabbatha this, blah, blah, blah. So that's one last reminder that this character that our main character cares so much about exists. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see her at some point.
There will definitely be that big, slow-mo.
And we got strong side female characters in the Danya Sophia and the Danya Vercinza. And we don't get to learn enough about them for them to be fully fleshed characters, but they're side characters.
It is cool that...
And they're very capable in their own right.
Yeah, and it is cool, very cool that, she establishes herself being the spider and everyone thinks it's a guy. Mm-hmm. That's part of her mystique, is that nobody...
It would be interesting to see some sort of, offshoot story where we see how she comes into that position.
Yeah, no, so that's true. That would be a fun thing.
Because who's the spider before her, you know? Is there a spider before her? Yeah. And then, how does she then assume that mantle, and how does she decide that the myth about the spider needs to be propagated from then on? Because, that's all very interesting, possible stuff. But so, yeah, she's obviously excessively capable.
Why is it always a spider? Because they're doing
spiders they've got their web that they can, a spider that sits in the middle, knows everything that's happening in the web, and can then, do whatever. It's also, the web is a trap, and, it's so many different, metaphors. And then the Danya Sophia is very capable as well, and that she's... an extremely accomplished alchemist, enough that even somebody who we're told is also an accomplished alchemist, and Danya Vercinza, Vercinza then tells Sophia to look at the statues and diagnose what the situation is.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find out, after the next couple of books, if for any reason they have to get back to Camor.
Yeah.
And have to deal with them again, because now,
they're on their shit list.
Yeah, and the Don and Danya Salvar are going to be the new spider. Mm-hmm. So it could, it seems like that could either just be a fun little tie-up for the end of the story, or is an easy seed to then pick back up in a later book and be like, remember these guys?
Yeah,
now we got to deal with them again.
They remember you.
Yeah, and despite Locke having saved the city and them, they're still going to hold the grudge of having lost all that money.
Yeah.
But in any case,
let's hit it. Let's so like where did we leave Locke last week?
He's leaving the celebration feast that Barsavi had thrown and been murdered at.
Okay. So we're Donna.
He passes out somewhere on the way back to Ashfall district where the safe house was. Mm-hmm. And he's coming to in some place he doesn't really know. Somebody has worked on him. Yeah. And Jean's there. They're in a safe house. Jean found him.
They have an ex-physiker, like an ex-doctor.
Yeah, they call him, what do they call him?
Homeboy. No.
Homeboy.
Yeah.
No, it's like leeches. Leech dogs. Dog leeches.
Yeah,
They call them dog leeches. They're like...
Dude, they were super standoffish with the doctor. Like, he didn't want him anywhere near him. Like, Locke, at least, you know, it seemed
first, he didn't... Well, because certainly with everything that they had found out, or anything that he had found out that had not yet imparted to Jean, he was like, I can't fucking trust anybody at this point.
Yeah, especially dog leech.
But then Jean tells him, like, no, it's cool. You can speak openly for now. And then after a couple of interactions, Jean is then like, okay, cool, like, I'm not going to hold back with you around. But he's definitely more than once, like... I think more than anything, he's very sarcastically and sardonically throwing jibes at the physiker. Yeah. Because he's putting poultices of dead and ground up worms on him and stuff like that, which is like really gross. I would think. So he's just like, well, fuck you for doing that to me. Like, obviously he knows that it's important and that he needed it, but he's like, that was gross. Why would you do that to me? You're an asshole, Yeah. And the way that he talks to everybody, I mean, he says fuck and fucking like every other word, which I super appreciate. So he like survives that, and then immediately, and so then after that, then they have to figure out what they're going to do. Yeah,
that was really cool. This was cool because like it shows just how clever, Locke is. He's basically starting from zero, and he's got to
They got to figure something out.
Yeah, he's got to figure something out.
They know they need more money.
Yeah.
To do anything at this point.
Definitely need.
So they need to try and sustain the Salvara game. Mm-hmm. Luckily, Jean had sent them a letter as his assistant. I can't remember his assistant's name at this point. Yeah. Saying, I'm indisposed and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And so Locke's like, how do we get more clothes? It's like, I'll figure something out. He has no idea what he's going to do exactly.
Yeah, he's
got like the first step, and he's like, well, I'll figure it out then. Mm-hmm. And so then and then we move to him at Miragio's, one of the main counting houses of Camorra, but what they spend the interlude describing as being the biggest counting house and the most important one. Yeah. Which contextually, a counting house is a bank. Yeah.
And he's trying to get
he wants to find better clothes. He just wants clothes. Oh, yeah. Because he just needs something to look the part when he goes to see the Salvaris.
Dude, how creepy would that be if some dude just walked in and was like, hey man, we're about the same size. Can I have you?
Right, yeah. Every time he did that, I was like, how do you think this is going to work? I mean, obviously it doesn't work, but then he comes up with this brilliant on-the-fly scheme to steal the Miragio's clothes. Yeah. And then does so. And then goes to see the Salvaris. The Salvaris are then like, why don't you come to the party, the big Duke's party, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called.
Anybody is going to be there.
Yeah, like all the peers of Camorra are there, as they call them. And so they're obviously already in the loop with the Midnighters on the plan to trap the Thorn of Camorra. Because we had seen the last time that the Spider, Vicenza, and Stephen, good old Stefan, had been talking. They were trying to figure out with like, how do we catch the Thorn? And they're like, what if we get him to the party? Yeah. And so then whenever the Salvaris ask Lucas Fairwhite to join the party, we're like, okay, well now they are a part of the plan as well, so we know where this is going to end. Yeah. He obviously doesn't know.
No, but we just like, it's like, no, don't.
Yeah, but he can't say no. Like this, and he doesn't know it's going to be a problem. Yeah. He's got to agree.
Got to.
He's got no choice.
So he goes.
They're stringing him along at this point. They're like, we've had some setbacks for money. Mm-hmm. We're working on getting more. We can go smooch some people at the party and get some money there. Mm-hmm. We would love for you to come to the party. We've got nothing to do for 3 or 4 days until it shows up anyways, right? So why don't you come? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. because they have to go as nobility or whatever. So why not bring a guest and this and that?
Dude, how good do you think that food is?
It sounds super
a royal
cool.
Feast.
You have to, I guess, imagine that it's like, who would the president have on his cooking staff? Aside from the last 2 championship sports teams that he's had at the White House where he served them fast food.
Well, yeah, I guess we can use ours. I was thinking like back then, just like
because in general you would expect, the leader of any country.
Yeah,
I just wanted to put that one small joke in.
No, that's a good point.
But a leader of any country ought to have conceively the best chefs on staff at their home office or whatever it is.
They'd have at least pretty good ones.
In the United States president case, he lives at the office.
Mm-hmm. That would suck, dude.
Well, then in different wings, that's why they call it like the West Wing and all that sort of stuff. That's what the office is.
Yeah, but like you live at your office, dude.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome, dude. He had to move out of his dope fucking house. Doesn't matter. I see what you're saying, though.
So, I guess just as an expectation, you would think that, right?
Man, the food would be, it seems like it'd be so good. But so, basically what happens at the party, Mo?
The party, he gets there. First off, it's like super crazy environment. Because in one of the Elder Glass structures, the biggest one, the one that the Duke lives in, and like you enter in, and from the outside it's all opaque.
These were always really hard for me to imagine when they were describing them, but
they're what I imagine is that they're just like the towers that the nobility live in, the 5 towers there, or I think it was 5.
Yeah, I think that's right, 5.
They're just straight up towers.
Yeah, I was thinking...
And they're made of this Elder Glass structure, and each of the 5, they each have their own individual color or hue to them. And evidently one great family lives in each of the towers.
Yeah. No elevators.
No elevators. They just, literally elevators. In those weird cage structures that get pulled on pulleys.
Okay.
But so, they're like long, they're tall towers. The middle one that the Duke lives in being the tallest. And they're all different colors. The Duke's, once you get into it, it's opaque on the outside. And once you get into it, is clear. Yeah. As if you're just looking through a window.
That's cool.
So you can see throughout the entire city, out to the coast, because you're like 400 feet in the air or something like that, I think is what they finally say at some point.
It's like Mufasa. It's like, Simba, this is...
All that the light touches
this is
ours or yours. Will be yours one day.
Good old Mufasa. Hey.
And so, first off, it's like, oh shit, that's a really impressive scenery. And then there's all the food, and then, they describe the party. There's all these very luxury people there, and at some point, then the Danya Sophia lures Locke Lucas into a room to go talk with Vercenza. Yeah. At which point, Vercenza then stabs him with a needle that has some poison on it, and it's like, "Hey, we need to talk, or you're gonna die. I have the antidote."
Yeah. You can't take. Yeah, dude, when she stabbed him, I was at work today. I was just like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna die?" For real today, I thought Locke was gonna die.
There was more than one point that I was like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen now.
Yeah. Dude, and then he straight up just punches her in the face.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's great the way that he describes it in his mind, because he's thinking maybe because she's totally unguarded. Yeah. She's not putting up any immediate obvious defense or anything, or has anything up her sleeve or anything. And he's like, maybe she just is so used to her position and with the respect that it affords her. Or maybe she thinks she's in a long time dealt with someone that doesn't have any class. Because I have an opportunity to punch her and I'm going to do it. And so then he punches her.
Yeah, punches her.
Knocks her out.
Deftly snags the antidote.
Takes the antidote, drinks that, takes her coin purse, gets out the window, jumps onto one of the elevator cages, and escapes back to go talk to John.
Oh, dude, that was just great. Man, I was just so happy when that happened.
It was so satisfying in so many ways.
Yeah, dude, I was just, that was great, man. I was laughing. I was just everything was good again.
Right. We're on track. He bursts into the door of the safe house saying, Jean, we've got one hell of a fucking problem, and there's the Bonds mage.
Boom, another big, yeah.
He says, yeah, God. I would say you have one hell of a fucking problem.
Yeah, dude, and then we got to deal with that.
And so that whole interaction was pretty visceral and awful. It goes the way you would expect at first. And then, he's going to tell Jean to kill Locke.
Yeah, he controls Jean by using
he knows his true name. And then he says, you know what? No, I'm going to have Locke kill you.
Yeah, that'll be even more torturous having you kill him.
And this whole time I had thought about that sort of thing. Because I thought, there's no way that Locke Lamora is his true name. That's going to be like the big reveal of what was his biggest lie,
is straight up his name.
And so I was thinking about that, but they do, or the, author does a really good job of dispelling that idea for anybody that's already had it, because the Falconer then says, we all already know that Lamora isn't your actual last name,
right?
But we can use Locke.
Yeah.
That's enough to go off of for my magic. And so then you're like, shit, they figured it out. Like they know enough, blah, blah, blah.
He's right there. He's so close.
If you're already in the moment, you can buy into that being enough. And then Locke is like kind of plays into it a little bit, I guess.
He's so
though it doesn't get
it
doesn't get revealed to us until it happens. But then he knocks the Bonds mage with the backside of one of Jean's hatchets.
Yeah, he just faked it, and he ended up smacking the Bonds mage.
This is where he finds out that the Falconer and his falcon aren't just tied through like eyesight and hearing, like he had mentioned. He was like, "Oh, y'all are like fully tied. Y'all feel everything that each other feels."
Yeah.
Because the falcon then falls to the ground in pain, and so then the fight continues on from there, where now Jean and Locke have the total upper hand, and they totally disable.
Dude, and then it gets crazy. This is when I texted you, man. Like, they just start fucking. They go like Punisher. Like, they just start cutting his fingers off and then cauterizing them so that he doesn't die of blood loss.
Right, yeah.
Just for fun.
Well, not just for fun. They need to get the information out of him.
Yeah, some of it
and also for their own satisfaction.
Some of it was fun.
I don't think that at any point they're having fun during any of the revenge. I think that
maybe fun's the wrong word, but
they're getting the satisfaction of the revenge in the moment. And then even immediately after, more than once, Locke is like, so this is revenge. Yeah. Well, fuck it. It ends up not being, he ends up realizing that none of it was worth, the whole situation was garbage, and that it wasn't worth having to have gone through any of it, but he also recognizes that it was all that they could do at that moment. God, dude,
just a smack to the freaking, like, your pride, and just like right to the face. It's just like, it's not even satisfying getting revenge. You still don't have your friends. Like, you used to have like this protege that you were proud of, and it's like now it's just you and your best friend. Like, luckily, but
I think the realization is more where he says, "Well, fuck all that." Is more that, like, fuck that this had to happen.
Yeah,
because obviously revenge doesn't bring anybody back. No. But you have to go through that process for the sake of the people that you lost.
Yeah, man.
Certainly in this world.
For sure, yeah.
And so, what they're going for. Like, where at first you might want revenge because you think it's going to do something for you or bring you some sort of closure or whatever it is, and then you realize it didn't.
Right.
But you still realize that, it was necessary because the unnecessary awful things that happened prior to that happened already. And so, no, you're not going to change anything, but you're performing the necessary consequences of the actions that happened. And so I guess that's the feeling that he comes down to at the end there.
Yeah, man. It's just like, it's almost like they're barely content with the fact that, like, okay, we did what we had to do, but, like, it sucked having to do it.
And I think
he did a good job.
I think that's part of one of the reasons that I appreciate the story, is that it doesn't end nicely, and it doesn't end, with everybody being happy and this and that.
Yeah.
It's, realize all those things that we just talked about, and that it's not a situation of contentment, and it's not because they're not even like Locke would prefer to stay in Comore. The whole reason that he's up on deck when he shouldn't be is so that he can see Comore one last time as they leave on the ship.
Yeah.
So like the whole thing is awful still.
Yeah.
Whenever you take all of it into consideration, but it is the way that it is. And they still believe that they did the things that were necessary in response to what had been done to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
dude, just told, man. It was just like, it was good, just all the way through. Like, he did such. I feel like
it ties up the individual story obviously tied up way quicker than we thought it was going to.
Yeah, man.
Because we thought the fight with Raza was going to be the whole
series,
arc.
Yeah. It feels like it could have just ended after this book. Like it did. It almost doesn't need to be a series.
Right. Yeah. But absolutely.
Then he writes.
I think that with this being, I think his first major publication, it was a story that he had written. With the intent of it being like, if it gets picked up, it can be picked up even at a minor level. If it never gets supported, then it can end on its own. Yeah. And it works that way. Yeah. They got picked up and got a lot of traction. He was like, I can continue writing this now. Like it was like a thing he wanted to do, maybe, Yeah. So I guess that's how that happened.
Yeah. That's gotta be a good feeling.
I don't even know that I think the best part of this section was whenever he's first at the party and the interactions that he's having with everybody, and then with Raza at the party, because then the Great King shows up and they recognize each other and they have that funny interaction.
Wearing my clothes?
No, that's when he's talking with Mirage.
Oh, my bad, yeah.
Which was also really funny.
I thought that was very crazy.
And he comes up with, just on the spot, like this explanation for why he would have his clothes and like...
Oh, dude, I did it in your honor. Like, I'm totally into your fashion.
Right, yeah. And then Mirage was totally like, more or less fooled by it. And he's like,
all right.
Okay, yeah, I shouldn't have been
saying I am really cool.
Yeah. And then the interaction with the, Great King, where they know who each other are, and... the interaction that they have there, and then the breaking away from Vicenza, and then the escape, and then after the Bonds Mage, he goes back to the party, because he gets all the story and secrets out of the Bonds Mage, and realizes that the Great King is out to destroy the city, more or less, and then he foils that plan, and that was satisfying in the way that we were so stressed out at that point, that finally he was able to start getting things going for him in a positive direction. Right. Able to convince them, and seeing the eloquence that he could pull everything together and tell them, and convince them to believe him, and then convince them of things that aren't true. Yeah. And then get his effective pardon of everything that had happened so that he could go kill the Great King.
Yeah, man.
He's just so good at talking his way out of everything.
That's like his thing. Just literally like, I'm going to just let my instinct guide me. And dude, you're right. He talked his way out of everything. Like that was his like power. Like
right down to the end where he's finally fighting Raza, and as he's said more than once, he's not great at the fighting aspect of his job.
No, Raza was like, what do you think you're doing?
Yeah. Like, once Raza realizes it with like, he's doing like some probing attacks, and then he's like, oh, you're not good at this.
Yeah, you can't even fight.
I can beat you at this. I couldn't beat you at the other ship, but I'll beat you now. And then he jumps back to the old fight. Well, he doesn't mentally jump back, but we see him jump back to the old fight with whenever they were still kids and they were seconds. Yeah. And he just realized that all he had to do was hold on until Jean showed up. Yeah. And then Jean doesn't show up, and he finds an opportunity to trick
make him think
Raza
get
into
him now,
thinking Jean
Jean
is there. And then, does some trickery with this and that, and then starts stabbing him and gets, kills him. Yeah. So even at that last second, he was able to talk his way out of the problem.
Yeah, dude, he talked his way into winning the fight.
Yeah.
That's like
exactly.
Yeah, man, it was dude, he just totally worked his only skill and used it as good as he could. Like to max capacity, man. Dude, it was
literally the only way that he could have won that situation.
That was his cunning
was for him to somehow find some unthought of way to talk yourself out of a physical fight that you're in the middle of losing. You know? Like,
yeah, man. Dude, so that's basically it, right? Like, that was the whole...
That's, like, all that happens.
Yeah.
The epilogue is just some wrap-up stuff. Like we had, touched on earlier on, that, they're trying to find all the money that Locke had... The Vicenza and the Salvaras are trying to find all the money that Locke had told them he knows where it was. And it was a dead end. Vicenza realizes what had happened. It was on the plague ship that he had convinced her to sink. And then and then she's like, you know what? I am so done being the spider and dealing with all this. Salvaras, y'all get to do this next. I'm going to train y'all over the next however long I'm alive.
Yeah.
And y'all can inherit my title. And y'all can deal with how awful this job is.
Yeah, but y'all can do it together, and y'all get to do it. 2 of y'all are actually going to be the spider. So that's like, that was her little, like, this is a new twist on, like, what the spider is. They're
we saw how successful it was for everybody to think that it was a man doing it while I was doing it. We'll see how successful it is for everybody to think there's one person doing it while there's 2 people.
It's actually 2 spiders, so.
And then we jump to Locke and Jean, who are on a ship leaving.
Dude, that's an iconic scene in a lot of books. Just the ending, just they're on a boat, leaving.
Well, that's such that's for, all of history, one of the only ways that you can leave. Relatively speaking,
why is
the timeline of humanity has had ships substantially longer than any other mode of easy transportation.
Yeah.
So it's iconic because it's in the same way that stereotypes exist for a reason. It's because it existed for a reason. That's how everybody left.
That's a book stereotype. You're right.
That's how people in real life left their lives at that time.
Yeah. Waving their hankies.
Was on a ship. So
cool, man.
That's what happens in this section, and it was so fast paced and just constantly engaging, and it's gonna continue to. I think that as the series, it's going to continue to do so.
How are you? Yeah. So I was trying to think like how to ask. When are you going to read the rest of this? Like, so you think you're just going to like buy the books and like periodically read them? Like,
I want to just continue almost immediately. Really. Certainly, at least for the next one, I want to see what it is that they turn this into, because now, it wasn't what we thought almost at all. We still have Locke and Jean, which I think we would have both guessed at the time. Yeah. Or, at the end of last week.
That would have been my bet.
But we don't know what the next issue is. So I think the potentially next obvious thing is each book is its own individual adventure. Yeah. Which I think is exciting, because then there doesn't have to be a overarching story, which can sometimes get bad if it's not, less than expertly crafted.
Yeah, there's some sort of constraint too for like having to have like 7 books in a series or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
unless it was the plan originally, I think that it can be a detriment very quickly.
Right. Yeah. So that's cool that like it kind of just. I think you're right. I kind of hope they are all sort of like a standalone adventure kind of thing.
At the same time, I was really looking forward to a long plot that had individual adventures in the middle.
We were both so ready for that. To
because if it's a very, very well written long plot, there's probably not anything else better than that. Right, yeah. It's just so few and far between for that to happen, because you have to have come into it with that idea. Oh, yeah, and that probably takes more effort than I could ever put into anything myself.
And there's something to literally having to wait for it. You know what I mean? Like literally, like having to wait for them to write the ending. Like waiting for the end of Game of Thrones is going to make it so epic. Like they've been edging us this whole time,
or potentially so awful.
No, we're gonna have glasses half full.
So the show's going to be awful. The books will hopefully be good.
Oh, man, I hope you're wrong.
Because the last season of Game of Thrones was pretty awful.
Dude, I don't even remember it, so I guess you're right.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. And
the whole time I was like...
I remember thinking that show was like the dopest shit ever. But
so like 2 seasons ago is whenever it was noticeably going downhill. Because that's whenever they had caught up to the books. And they no longer had to answer to Martin's story. Yeah. And so then that's when Hollywood took over and had to make it more palatable to an audience that they could make money off of.
Which is just...
And that's when it gets bad.
Yeah, man. It just seemed like they were... Like, what made it so cool in the beginning was that it wasn't following this formula. And then
I know, they killed the main character at the end of the first season.
Yeah, dude. And then right at the end... Now it's following a formula, it feels like, and it's just
it's so
gross.
formulaic now.
It just feels kind of gross, but
it's the show itself is not great anymore. We'll talk about that here in a second.
Dude,
is there anything else we need to talk about this book about? There's so much that happened. There is so much to talk about, but
honestly, man, like I think what we should do is, since we're both so into this book, I think we should read the next one kind of on our own, and whenever we both finish that, we should just have a little episode about it.
Yeah, I think that we should absolutely continue with this series for the show.
I think that'd be great. I mean,
as we finish them and are able to then drop that in at the end of whatever book we're at the end there. It could be there'll be one-off episodes where we check back in with the Gentleman Bastards.
Yeah, and I think that's a fun way we can do series, because like, dude, this was good. I'm glad we did it, and like limiting ourselves only to single stories would be a shame, because then we would have never gotten to read this one. So
right.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm definitely gonna get the next one and start it soon, I think.
I'm excited to get to the next one.
Not to say that we'll have to do an episode on it soon, but
depending on how much I have to drink tonight, I might buy the next one and start reading it tonight. Which will also depend on how poorly Justin Verlander continues to perform in this baseball game.
Come on, Justin Verlander.
I know.
How old is he?
Older. He's in the back half of his career.
It's all downhill from here.
30.
Just kidding.
6, I think.
Dude, running so many years, it's got to be bad.
He doesn't run. He's a pitcher.
Oh, dude. Oh, his shoulders gotta be
he's a pitcher in the American League where he doesn't have to go up to bat.
Man, dude, sports has got to like at that level. Dude, that's gotta like when you do one thing like that, like when you're like Tiger Woods swinging the shit out of that.
Tiger Woods ruined his back twice because he put so much into it.
Man, that's so wild. Humans are crazy.
Which is why he was the best. While he was the best, was because he was able to, knock off 1 to 2 strokes per hole, because he would just drive that bitch down to the hole almost.
Man, and he was. Dude, he's awesome. He's like a wonder to watch. And then
he's making such a comeback too. It's so great. It's such a great sports story. I hope that he continues to progress in the way that he's progressing, because it's going to be such a great comeback story.
I never have
sports-wise a
really fun golf conversation with anybody. That was awesome. I didn't even know we would have a fun conversation about golf. Nobody likes talking about golf because they're like, it's not fun to watch. But
it's an acquired taste, and it's I think that people say it's not fun to watch because at the very surface level, it's just a bunch of dudes walking for a long time. They take a hit and then they walk a long time more. Holes, yeah. But like all sports, if you understand what's happening, you can then appreciate what's happening. Not even just sports,
just like music,
all things in life. If you understand what it is, then you can appreciate what it is.
Yeah.
And then you can go further with it. With sports, then you can start having an allegiance to a player or a team, which then gives you a dog in the race, and you've got a reason to hate a different team. And so, it all stems from giving yourself the opportunity to understand what it is that is even happening.
What a world.
Yeah.
So, dude, next week, we were talking about what we were going to read, and I feel like it would be a lot of fun to just read, like, The Hobbit. Read The Hobbit, hash it out, talk about it. You know a ton about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and just, like, the universe of Tolkien, and I don't.
I do have a tattoo.
And, it's a good tattoo.
Yes. So, this is something that we had been, very lazily teasing once or twice in the podcast, and then I did it once or twice on the Instagram. We have an idea for doing the Lord of the Rings, not as a series, but as a mythos. Yeah. And what we're going to do prior to realizing that idea in full is we're just going to... We've both already been reading The Hobbit, sort of in preparation for this experimental idea that we've got. But we're going to go ahead and just use The Hobbit as the reading for this week.
Yeah, I mean...
Just like we did the Fork, the Witch, and the Worm as just a 1 week reading of the book, and then we talk about it as a whole. That's what we're going to do this coming week.
That'll be cool. And so many people have read The Hobbit too. Like it won't even necessarily be like,
it's pretty ubiquitous as far as fantasy novels go.
Yeah, man, it'll be good. You're right. It is pretty much like the start of like fantasy novels like this. It'll have like this will be like the framework almost for like the future of
for
novels.
a
like,
lot of people.
This is what elves are. This is what like dwarves become. You know.
Well, it's even just like on a timeline scale, it came out so long ago.
I know, and it's still relevant. Like,
yeah,
it's a good one. It'll be fun. I'm excited to just hit it, dude. This week, like I'm just gonna enjoy listening to The Hobbit. Like it's fun hanging out with Bilbo.
Right. It's whenever I had first started reading it, I almost immediately remembered how funny Tolkien is in his writing.
It's a lot more free too in The Hobbit. I feel like I didn't get far in the Fellowship, but like
The Hobbit is. And, and we'll probably talk about this to some degree next week as well. And then, if the other idea that we have ever comes to fruition, but The Hobbit is a child's book. Yeah. That's what it was written as. And then everything that comes after that just happens to be Tolkien realizing that creating this mythos is his life's work and his dream. He wrote the first chapter of The Hobbit on a whim one day. And was cool. Like, okay, I can make this into a book, and this can be a good children's book. Yeah. And so because of that, and with it also, being a little bit serious and being written at a time where, not that I've read a bunch of children's books from that time, but I imagine children's books weren't just like, and then he put the purple triangle in the purple triangle hole. Just like simple garbage.
Yeah, no, this would be like
this was written like at a time where I guess maybe they expected, a little bit more maturity out of whatever the beginning reading age was.
A teen novel, probably. Kind of like how Harry Potter, like it hit like, a youth throughout the world. Like it's probably about like that level, I'd say, The first Harry Potter.
It has more respect for its readers than The Hungry Caterpillar.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, not like a beginning book, but it is still like a young adult or kid's book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And dude, I'm excited. Yeah,
but it's great. It's a good one. Individually speaking, it's the best of all of them.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most enjoyable by far.
You're right. I mean, I've literally read it more than once, and I have not gotten through any others. So I mean,
if the others have to be taken as a package. Mm-hmm. If you look at them individually, even then you're thinking about them as a package. Yeah. The Hobbit is truly something that you can only think of by itself. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say only think of, but you
have that luxury.
Yes, you're given the luxury, you're given the opportunity to be able to think of it as a thing by itself. Yeah. Whereas nothing else in the mythos is. It's great. It's one of the things. It's one of the books that I love more than any other book.
Yeah, that'll just be fun to really geek out on that next week.
Yeah. So that's gonna be what we read next week, and then at that time, we'll give you whatever it is that's going to be after that, because we don't know yet.
Yeah, no, that's also another reason we're doing it, giving us some more time to.
In addition to, we'll be doing 2 episodes a week starting at that time, because we're going to be doing Game of Thrones episodes. Yeah. During the run of this last season of Game of Thrones, we're going to be talking about whatever the week's episode was. So the episodes come out on Sundays, and then we're going to record on Mondays and publish the Game of Thrones episode that night.
Boom. It's been said, so it shall be. Yes. Brace yourselves. There will be
a
lot more content.
The regular book club podcast will continue to come out on Wednesdays. Yeah. Any variable time of the day on Wednesday, whether it's 12:01 a.m. Wednesday or 11:59 p.m. Wednesday. It really depends on when I get to edit. But the Game of Thrones episode will come out Monday evening.
Yeah, that one we're going to keep as quick as we can, just to keep it as relevant as possible and make it fun. Yeah,
and it's just going to be us talking about what we think about it. Yeah. It's not like there's anything even to really predict beyond this season anymore, since this is going to be the last season. Yeah. And as we've already discussed, we think that it's pretty Hollywood at this point. So it's not like we're going to have any...
It'll be cool though to do it week by week, kind of like how in that Serial podcast she was like flipping back and forth, like, oh, did he do it? Did he not do it? That'll be us through this podcast. It'll be like week by week. It'll be like, oh, is John gonna make it? Who's gonna be the king in the end? What's happening to Tyrion?
I think that there's definitely some excitement to be had. I don't want to only shit on the show. There's just a lot to shit on.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good.
I'm excited. for it to finally end. I think more than anything.
Oh man, I was talking about it earlier today. It's the end of like a literal era, dude. Like it's an era of media. Dude, it crashed the freaking internet when that show was coming out. You know, like it crashed HBO.com, I guess.
Right.
You know, and I mean, True Detective did that too. But I mean, we're just. Now, that's the real way to do, like, a good job, like, do a book justice, is really make it into, like, a series, like, an hour special series, like
I think that Game of Thrones did create the idea that motion picture adaptations of novels don't have to be 1.5 hour long movies.
You can take your
and
time.
are, in fact, better served as being series.
Yeah, man. I wonder...
That, in conjunction with the advent of binge watching.
Right.
Which came much later after Game of Thrones actually started.
It'd be interesting to see...
Probably like 4 seasons into Game of Thrones starting.
How, like, if Lord of the Rings hadn't have been done, like, how they would do it now, you know? Like, it'd be interesting to see if they would do it in a series of, like, 10 episodes per season where we get, like, the...
Well, we're about to get a Lord of the Rings series.
But is it the story we know and love?
No. It's going to take place during the Second Age, which, timeline-wise, is...
After Frodo?
Long before.
Oh.
Frodo lives in the Third Age. The Third Age ends whenever the ring is destroyed.
Oh.
The Third Age begins with the last alliance of men and elves. That battle at the Black Gates when, at the beginning of the movies, whenever Galadriel, Cate Blanchett is giving the narration of what happens at that last battle. Uh-huh. And then later on we see Elrond talking about how he was there whenever they, failed to actually destroy the ring, but they defeated Sauron and all that sort of shit.
Dude, that's so cool, man.
That's when the Third Age begins.
Yeah.
Is when Sauron's defeated.
Okay.
The Third Age... I'm sorry, not the Third Age. The Second Age obviously ends when the Third Age begins. The Second Age begins when the ring is forged. I need to double check that.
Dude, guys, but if you're liking this, just imagine next week. That's all it's going to be. Just more and more. Lord of the Rings. It's going to be good, dude. Next week's going to be so much fun. Like, I love letting people geek out about stuff that they genuinely know a lot about and genuinely love, like the mythos. You can almost make, like, anything interesting. Like, my uncle is super into darts. So, like, we were watching, like, professional darts, and it's literally just, like, a bunch of alcoholics, like, throwing, like, darts at the board, It's awesome. And it was so much fun to watch because they're not even throwing it at the bullseye. They're throwing it at the triple 20, which is 10 points more than the bullseye.
Oh, my God, I was so off. I'm
okay.
sorry, continue what you were saying.
No, I was just filling in the space until you were figuring out.
God, the Second Age is so much longer than I remembered it. This is why I need to... So the reason that we haven't gone through with the Lord of the Rings idea that we have is because I need to refresh. It's been a long time since I've read everything. I used to read literally everything at least once every 2 years. It's been at this point now several years since not even just a series, but then I would read the Silmarillion, and then I would read the offshoot books that his son has written.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And even Tolkien himself had, everything is something that J.R. Tolkien has written himself. And at this point, his son is just going through the documents that he read and making them into coherent stories and adding here and there where it's necessary to make a narrative. But the lore is all, at this point, still stuff that Tolkien himself had written. But the Second Age is probably the second longest age, because the First Age would have been the longest age because that starts from the beginning of existence. But anyways, so the Second Age is a really long time. It starts with some stuff that probably none of y'all have ever heard of, and then ends whenever Sauron is defeated. It begins with the banishment of Morgoth, who is the original bad guy. He is one of the demigods, not even demigod. He's one of the gods and he turns bad, and then he does some bad stuff, and then the gods banish him. And then he sort of fosters Sauron, who was a man of Numenor. There's so many things. We're getting into the weeds here.
This is going to be so good next week. I got to bring a notepad just to keep up in the conversation. It's going to be so much fun, dude. I'm literally going to start The Hobbit over and just crush it. So brace yourselves, guys, next week. That's
what we're reading.
All it's going to be.
We're doing The Hobbit. We're getting into my wheelhouse, and you may or may not enjoy how much I know about it.
Oh, dude, I'm going to enjoy it, so... you know, that's good enough. No, but I can't wait, man. I'm excited.
At the very least, everybody can enjoy The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And even if you don't then dive into all the almost gratuitous information of Lord of the Rings that's out there, you can enjoy this one story.
And these are books we do need to talk about because of how much they have like influenced our lives. They've been a part of our lives. They've
influenced like directly, yes, and then parties. Influencing other people that then wrote or created other things that we've enjoyed.
So it's a need to talk about, and I'm glad we're doing it. So y'all know how to find us. I mean, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We don't have a Facebook, do we?
We don't.
Well, I don't know why I said that. Instagram, Twitter, email, ears_stamps, dog ears and timestamps at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. That is all correct.
Yeah, and
you can catch us there. We'll see you with The Hobbit next week, and then we'll see you with whatever is after that, plus Game of Thrones the week after that.
Yeah, man.
I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps. And Justin Verlander needs to start striking some motherfucking Rangers out.